Style essentially is your sole identification, right? The way you're styled, the way you're tailored, people are able to assess you and say, okay, this is an individual I can trust.
It's easier to stop a woman on the street if you're in a suit than not, right?
For some women, depending on the age, they can be intimidated by a guy with a suit. When we're talking about the guy that is in formal attire and he has a suit game on point, we're talking about women that are on their way. They're kind of declining at this point, where they've already hit their peak. And now we're
desperation levels. That's crazy.
So now we're getting to the point where
Finisher.
they're trying to settle down. They're trying to find somebody that has stability, that's secure. Right, y'all already know what time it is. It's the Far From Normal Bros, and we back at it again. First of all, I'm gonna need you to tell a friend and tell a friend and tell a mother effing friend to follow and subscribe to your boys. We on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and other podcast platforms as well. You can catch us on YouTube and TikTok. That's Far From Normal Podcast. Make sure you write that in the search engine and you'll find us up on there. We got clips, we got shorts. Make sure you like, subscribe, and share the content, people, because we put in that work. Of course, we're gonna have to plug in the website. That's www.farfromnormalpodcast.com. We got our links up there also. And you know where to find your boy. It's your boy Fuzzy Vision with 2 N's at the end of Vision on the gram. Make sure if you have any likes, dislikes, rebuttals, or want to be on the podcast, hit your boy up. Sonny, let him know what the handle is, baby. You already know what it is. It's your boy Sonny Frames. You can catch me on the gram, Sonny SONNY Frames, double S at the end. Make sure when you check out my gram, check out my stories, especially my stories, because I usually post a lot of stuff that has to deal with motivation, inspiration, chasing your dream, and execution. A lot of people, the problem is we all live in dreams, but we need to make these dreams a reality. And in order to make those dreams a reality, we need to focus on execution. And Fuzzy, let's get them. All right, so without any further ado, we gonna introduce our guest, and you already know how we introduce our guest. First of all, shout out to Rico Suave. You already know what time Rico Suave in the building. Hold on, we gotta give this guy a bomb drop. Bomb for him. We gotta drop the bomb. Hold on. Got the air horns and everything. Let's get it. What's good, Rico? And
that's one of the best welcomes I had in a while. Honestly, I'm honored to be one of the first guests out here.
100%.
One of the first guests on the Far From Normal podcast. I'm excited.
All right. And for our second guest, we got Jariah, the wife, in the building. Hold on, let's get it. What's good, Jariah? What's good? What's going on, brother? Talk to the people, man. Let me give you a clap for that. Let me give you an applause, baby.
Definitely, this is a wonderful experience. I appreciate you guys for having me on Far From Normal Podcast. I'm seeing the growth. I'm just enjoying. I'm just here. I'm just enjoying. I'm appreciating what I'm seeing.
Okay. So today, again, we got two new guests that are going to be on this podcast, and today we're going to get into the topic at hand. You already know we get right to the shits. So today we're going to talk about how to level up your wardrobe. So today, a lot of the times we mix it up when it comes to the content. A lot of the time we're talking about relationships. Sometimes we're talking about entrepreneurship, business, and style is one of those same aspects that we want to deal with. So right now we want to think about getting to, how people can change up their wardrobe, especially if they want to change styles, especially when it comes to formal wear. We know streetwear is what rules the day. So most people always, dress in sneakers, jeans, hoodies, things that are trendy, things that you see rappers and musicians, artists. But we keyed in on Rico because we noticed that he was doing something totally different. He was going the formal route and dealing with suits and fittings and all these different things. So So right now we gon' switch it up to Rico, and we got some questions for you, brother.
Well, before we
talk to
even
me,
get
man.
into
Talk to
those
me.
questions,
Sir.
let's start off with a brief description of who you are, Rico.
Honestly, very simply put, I'm a custom menswear specialist and lifestyle event specialist as well. And honestly, that's how brief I want to keep it.
Okay.
All right. And for Jariah, we would like to hear a little bit about yourself, a little description.
Well, okay. I wear many hats, but I think oftentimes people consider me a philosopher. So I'm going to say I'm not a philosopher. I just appreciate good thinking and good discourse.
Okay. All right. This is great.
Yeah, I feel like anything you say with that voice, straight up, even if it doesn't make sense, you're like, maybe I'm just not wise enough. Maybe I just need to.
That's why I call him Jariah the Wise.
I just need to spend 3 more months in the mountains
I like
just the voice, man, the radio voice.
I know he has that radio voice, man. He's like Morgan Freeman out here.
Go.
He can narrate stories and everything.
Let's get it.
Yeah.
So first of all, I wanted to now get into the questioning. So for what you do, I want you to at least, give us a description in terms of what you do when it comes to fittings. What does that mean when you're fitting somebody in a suit, and or somebody wants to get dressed for an occasion, whether it's a wedding, whether it's a photo shoot, whatever the case may be? How does that process work? How do people contact you, and how do they schedule a fitting?
So at the moment, a lot of my, the way people contact me is very personal, either through Instagram, email, text message, or word of mouth. The fitting process is usually like what we call the fitting process is the last step, like is where you actually try on their suit. But the actual process, how that looks like is obviously, people schedule a time. A lot of times some people are really organized. They'll send me like a whole mood board of like what they want to do for the occasion, and then they come in, look at a different, range of fabrics, pick it based on whatever they need the suit for, design it, pick all the small details like the liner, the monogram, all the little things just to make it very personable, and then they get measured up. About 4 to 6 weeks later, the suit comes in. So it's kind of like it's a relationship more than like a purchasing, like more than just a purchase, because you're building something for them that's extremely personal. On top of that, you got to maintain that relationship, and you're gonna see them again. And so that's kind of like the process. You pick the fabric, you design it, pick all the personal details. 4 to 6 weeks comes in, we throw the suit on, or the shirt, or the blazer, the chino, whatever it is, and then we see how it fits, and then we kind of make sure that you're happy with it, and that's kind of like the process, more or less. Definitely a lot of cigars, definitely a lot of espressos involved, a lot of champagne, a lot of drinking, dinners. So
Guys gotta incorporate that. You already know.
that's all people see, though. That's they don't see the hard work before we go smoke a cigar. After crafting a suit, they just see me smoke and just think that's all I do.
100%.
Yeah.
They want to live with the vibes, They
100%.
want to they like the lifestyle.
It's a compliment, though, when you make something look easy and like your work looks like has nothing, no sweat behind it. That's that's when you reach mastery, is where people think, oh, he has it easy, and his job is easy. I think that's what everybody should aspire to be.
100%.
Yes, it's like at the gym benching. You don't want to show. You don't want to even crack facial expression. Just do plates.
Oh yeah, 100%, 100%. Because people like to see others that they want to look at others as anomalies, where they could just chalk it up to the game, or they have good genetics, but they don't know the behind the scenes and what it actually takes to become what you are. But hey, it is what it is. If that's what they want to go off, if that's what they feel, if that's how they sleep at night and feel good about themselves, hey, knock yourself out. So I actually had a question for you. I wanted to know, when did you first take interest in menswear attire? Like, how did that come about?
So the menswear attire, like the interest in the industry itself, came a little bit late. I used to just like putting things together and dressing well. Actual interest in menswear came maybe when I was like, when I started realizing, like, for me to take my life to the next level, I had to learn about certain things and put on different outfits. Because I used to work for like athleisure brands, all like athletic stuff, and so I was like, I definitely need to step it up, because I noticed every time I started going places, like, I was dressing well, putting things together, but I didn't have pieces that kind of put me into a different club of people that knew exactly what to look for, and in people's outfits, to see if they could trust them with their business, if they could trust them to have them around XYZ. So I started looking into it. It was more like like I just wanted to level up. and just kind of expand my mind in that field. So that's how I started. I'd say probably 2016 or so. That's what I was like, maybe about 20, 21, 22 at the time.
Oh, okay.
And I was like, yeah, like I just, I started going from streetwear and athletic wear to taking interest in something that's a bit more sophisticated, if you want to call it that. Yeah.
That's interesting because, you know how it is, especially when we come from like a metropolitan. Streetwear rules the day. Everyone wants to wear, the newest Yeezys or Jordans or Dunks or whatever is coming out. That's usually looked at as more trendy, right? Where more people lean towards, or what people at least recognize as stylish, just because of the rarity, the scarcity of the item. That's where fashion has basically brought us, where scarcity, it kind of defines the day, and that hype beast culture, getting whatever is sought after, whatever is limited pair
100%.
of, and all that. So the fact that you went towards suits, and you mentioned, you kind of said that, put you in a different bracket in terms of how people, maybe took you, how they interacted with you, if they could trust you in certain situations. And then also what you mentioned was the attention to detail. So when it comes to dealing with suits and comparing it to like streetwear, when you say attention to detail, what exactly do you mean? Because, anyone can throw on a suit. It's not hard to throw on a suit. But when you say pay attention to detail, because why would someone want to get fitted instead of just going to, Zara or, all these stores that are, fast fashion, or things that, they can basically set up the whole suit for you. You might just have to get it tailored, maybe, just hemmed or whatever, little alterations. But what would guide a person to get to that point of, wanting a fitting? Because it sounds like it's more meant for something that's like a big occasion. But
Yeah.
let me know because I know there's people that fit themselves for regular every day, but
Yeah.
I want you to explain that part.
100%. That's actually a great question. At the end of the day, like fashion and style are two different things, right? Fashion is more about trends and kind of keeping up with what's coming out every 6 months or so. And then style is more about how you put it together and how proportionate and balanced you could look with your outfit. So style is it's less about dressing, more about how you live your life, how you do things, your view on things, and like your approach on having like a take on a podcast, for example. What does a podcast look like? Like that's my style, right? Of like living, doing a podcast. So both are expressions, if you want to call it that. They're both moving art. But at the end of the day, the whole purpose of suiting comes with talking to the subconscious of people that are across from you. So for example, you see military guys back in the day, they would have like huge padded shoulders and like trench coats that just make them appear bigger than they are, just because they wanted to have that power over people, right? Seem more intimidating, seem more authoritative. And then like they'll throw on colors like a navy overcoat and like green, just which are colors that emit trust. So it's like at the they're intimidating you, but also, kind of tap into part of your subconscious that makes them trust them for some reason, right? Which is why also body language is important. Like if you look at people's body language, you can tell if somebody's scared, nervous, or if their intentions are pure towards you. Like you could tell if somebody's threatening coming towards you with their body language. So a suit is the same thing. You're picking, like the whole purpose of the suit is to make you look proportionate and to show how much you actually invest in details that not a lot of people know about, right? So if I see a guy that like wakes up and I know he actually puts details into how he dresses and all that type of stuff, I know that he's also, that characteristic about him is going to translate in everything else in life, right? So I had a car salesman when I was young buying a car, baggy suit. I was like, I don't know if I trust this guy would actually give me the perfect deal, because I know he's missing a few things. So that's the importance of actually investing in a good wardrobe when it comes to like the custom side, because off the rack you're fitting every single person. So the size of your lapels, the size of your collar, every single thing is not made for you specifically. For example, like if this lapel was extremely small, it would make my head look big, right? If it was too big, it would make my head look small. Vice versa, with like your cuffs on the pants. So it's all about communicating who you are without saying anything at the end of the day. It shows that you've invested in the education to know what to wear, what not to wear. It shows that you're paying attention to how you present yourself and you're looking proportionate. So it's a subconscious message that tells the person in front of you they can either trust you or they can't. You either cut corners or you don't, right?
Yeah,
Okay.
That's interesting. So I wanted to get your thoughts, Jariah, on that whole how you describe basically, you know, how certain attire and certain things you wear and what, you know, the attention to details, how that basically can affect perception. I want you to just talk about that in terms of formal wear, if you compare it to, say, streetwear.
The difference in representation.
I mean, for the most part, people just take you seriously. One thing I was able to, you know, take away from what Rico was saying is that that your style essentially is your soul identification, right? The way your style, the way you're tailored, people are able to assess you and say, okay, this is an individual I can trust, especially in today's day and age where oftentimes people want to mimic and become like others, which in some degree there's nothing wrong with it. In other degrees it can be troubling. So the tailored fit and the way you source your materials, and this is what comes with, you know, going with individuals like Rico who can assess colors that actually match your body type, your tone, your presence, really. So just to go back to your question, I kind of see it as, again, just how you deal with individuals. If you see a person that is tailored to the bone, let's say, and he is representing a clean look, representing a formal look, oftentimes you know that it took time, because these are not things that you just put on when you just come out the shower. It's not something casual, so it shows that you are someone to be respected. And in today's society, respect is definitely, I mean, it's always been this case, but respect is definitely key. So.
Absolutely.
So why do you think that? Because I would say, for example, we got guys that are dressed in formal attire, and it could be an organized crime, right? They can still be out there doing the dirt as much as a person that's wearing urban attire. So what makes the difference between both of them? Because if that's the case, just because you're in a set of clothes that make you look, that presents you in a more cleaner way, how does that determine if you're a person of values and you're not, and if you're a person of that doesn't have values? How does that work?
I think criminals need it even more than regular people, because you really can't look guilty. So you better do everything. You know, you can't have anything work against you. And I feel like at the end of the day, even if you're a criminal, there's, you know, some sort of level of standard of how you operate and how you move around the world. That's why a lot of times you do see criminals that, you know, especially like the old mobsters, like they invest in their wardrobe because it's a respect thing. I'll say this to say that, to get back to your point, like I lived in Italy for a little bit, right? So over there, when you dress, is less about like role playing, and it's more about like showing up to the occasion with the proper attire for it, as a sign of respect for yourself, for the person, and to also show that like, hey, like you're getting, it's your ticket, like is your entry to that event or whatever the case is. So if you're, you know, not dressed for it, sometimes like if you're wearing really casual shoulders to a formal event and, you know, like a mobster invited you, he might take that as an insult. You never know. He might be like, you don't think my event is formal enough for you to wear padding on your shoulders or invest in a proper tuxedo, right? So I think in that world, they need even more, because you just gotta look innocent.
You're not that guy, pal. Trust me. You're not that guy.
Think about even that term, organized crime, right? Depending on how you dress, you might put attention to the organization, or you might put attention to just the crime.
Absolutely.
Right? So
that's huge.
Organization would, dressing formal would, you know, suggest you're organized with what you do, which means you'll be punctual. I mean, I don't want to go too deep into it, but you would be punctual and you would be, you know, attentive to the minute details that definitely matter, the nuances that matter within such a world, right?
100%. And you know what? That's huge. That's kind of like a British way of dressing, which is under the radar. Like British people get pissed off if you compliment their outfits, because their whole goal is to look so subtly elegant that any compliment means they overdid it.
Oh, wow.
Sometimes can show insecurity, right? So for them, they're like, fuck, like, you know, it's like the British accent there, but it's like mobsters definitely gotta be low key, but they still have to use other details in the suit, like the cut techniques, like in tailoring, so you look incredibly well put together, but people don't know why. It's not the bold colors, not whatever. It's like, it's how well you flattered and complimented your body and shape, right?
That's interesting that you say that, because when even what you said about the British and how they want to dress elegant, but they want to dress in a way that they don't draw so much attention to them. And if they draw attention to themselves, that means that they're not dressed elegant enough. But
Exactly.
what I find strange about that is because in different places, people dress differently in the sense that there's another term that's been used called peacocking, where people are dressed more eccentric and they're dressed in ways that does make them conspicuous to the crowd.
Yeah.
And I believe the reason why they do that is because in a crowd full of people, in order for you to be known or to be recognized as an individual, you need to do stuff that is different from the norm, or
Absolutely.
you'll just follow you'll follow the herd.
100%. Yep. And it's that's like innocent people that do that, because you can draw attention to you without having repercussions. But like you mentioned, the criminals, very subtle, don't bring attention. But the peacocking term, absolutely, it's not just about doing something that's different. It's also about, 100% is about doing different things, but some people, again, that's their style. Like that's how their approach on life is, to push the boundaries, to do something that's far from normal, if you want to call that.
Exactly.
I heard there's a nice
Exactly.
podcast out there that talks about that type of stuff. But so that's the whole point of like style. It's like you're telling me who you are. So again, if I see a guy with a bright pink suit, I know his personality is to be out there a little bit loud. Definitely not recruiting him for my organized crime, because like he's gonna choose flash over profit or flash over freedom sometimes. So just to kind of like put those examples, like do not own any organized crime, whatever. Don't let my pinstripe suit fool you. But so I think it just again has to do with your personality and how you view life and your take on it. And you do see a lot of those guys that just push the boundaries and go crazy, and like you see that that aspect of their personality also carries over to other things in life, right?
Yeah, you could even go as far as talk about pimps. Pimps do that all the time, right? But that's how they get their women.
Sign of power sometimes with the suit and the flamboyancy to the suit.
So
it's a sign of strength, because obviously the opinion of others is not a big deal to you. You rather be noticeable, and people that identify with those that are audacious in how they dress, usually those are the people that have like strong followings and have that cult-like following where people
100%.
really resonate with them just because they do things that
Bigger than life.
Yeah, they do things bigger than life. They're always looking for the next the next thing that's gonna pop out, the next style or this trinket or this accessory that's just gonna pop out and basically make people seem like they're bigger than life. I think that's the biggest thing with peacocking and dressing a certain way. I think what you do is more for guys that are not necessarily trying to peacock. I think guys can peacock more subtly.
I think there's levels. I think there's levels to peacocking, because you're still peacocking even though you're not wearing eccentric colors, because formal attire is not the norm, in the sense that the everyday person, the layman, is not typically wearing a suit. Most men don't even have a suit.
Yes, that's facts.
I mean, right? I mean,
not a proper suit.
Not a proper suit.
Maybe for like
definitely not
maybe black and
tailored.
white.
Because if they were gonna wear a suit, it would probably be to go to a wedding, and how much times do weddings typically occur? So they most likely not have a suit for that.
I'd say if you're under 35, most people don't have a suit.
They don't have a suit.
If you're over that age, most likely you've had to deal with the funeral, had to deal with the wedding. So it goes by the stages in your life. But we've been taught at this point,
or corporate events, that's why they would have
even corporate events. I think people will mix it up. They won't have a full suit. I mean, full suit top to bottom.
Yeah, it would be I guess more casual.
Definitely more casual, maybe just a dress shirt.
It's very rare for me to have clients that come see me and like they're specifically get into menswear because they actually just like it. I have maybe say out of 100 clients, maybe 3 or 4 that are like, hey, like I started reading menswear blogs and yada yada yada, and like I want to get into this stuff, and I saw you doing it. A lot of guys are like, hey, like I just got it. Like when I got into the industry, I had to get 2 suits from off the rack, and like $300. Did they feel well? No, but I was in great shape at the time, so anything kind of looks good if you're in shape. But I didn't know anything about the details. I was just kind of but I would not have gotten a suit if it wasn't for an interview to get into my industry, right? But a lot of guys that come see me, it's like younger guys, and that's one of the best parts of my job, honestly, is seeing a young guy enter in his mentality and his choice of colors and patterns. As he moves up in his company, you can see how he's a bit more secure in his place in the world, and you can see them being less flashy and less out there, and like actually being like, they'll spend even more, but they want to be more subtle, more just like no bullshit suits, where it's just like, it's just, I love seeing that transition, and people really seeing people grow and like adopt their personal style, which is amazing.
So I wanted to talk about.
I wanted to ask Jariah a question, because he has a bit of an eccentric style when it comes to his dress attire. So I would like to ask you, when you think about suits and when you decide to wear certain types of suits, what comes into play? How do you think up, okay, you know what, today I'm going to wear this suit with this certain type of attire? How does that play out?
For me, I'm at a stage where it's more of a feeling. But naturally, I think if I'm to walk you through how I started the journey, it's my mentality, the way I assess the world, from my mentality, my point of view is to be certain. So one thing I think about when I think about formal wear is being certain. When you see somebody in a suit, he's certainly doing something. You can call it an interview, you can call it a funeral, whatever have you, he's certainly doing something. So for me, one thing I appreciate with colors too, I like to use colors coming from a world that I was coming from, especially being black and from the inner city world. You don't have the luxury or the opportunity to express yourself in the way of color. So for me, at the age that I'm at now, I find myself playing around with certain colors, knowing what these colors stand for and represent, and I, add it to my style. That's just how I do it. But again, the whole point of doing this is to be certain. There are certain things that I'm giving off when I decide to use, as you use the term, more eccentric kind of colors. I'm trying to display something, and it should represent and mirror what it is my heart is, intending.
That's dope. I love that.
Yeah, I love it.
You're expressing yourself, but also sending out a message on who
Exactly,
you are.
exactly.
So now I wanted to talk about the persona with suits. Obviously, of wearing suits is a different persona, of course. But I want to talk about women now. So when you walk around in a suit, compared to when you walk around in jeans and sneakers and all that type of stuff, did you notice a different reception from the women? How do women take you? Because
Oftentimes the game's won before you even begin.
Okay, so you're trying to say that doesn't really dictate too much?
I'm saying that it does dictate. I'm saying that the mere fact that you go from a formal wear or a casual wear to formal wear, most of the problem solved.
Okay.
Most of the problem solved, because again, it is supposed to reflect and it's supposed to show certain, right? So it's supposed to show that you are assertive, that you are what you are seeming to be, and there isn't any guessing game oftentimes. So one thing I've learned is, when you dress such a way like this, it speaks for itself and it speaks for you. So
what's your thoughts, Rico, in terms of that, in terms of women and the reception, or the type of women that would be receptive to that? Because often we know that, certain women that we might want don't care for guys in suits. It's, the suit's a good guy kind of thing. I mean, you don't really see the bad boy. And this is what I'm trying to get to.
It's like the preppy guy.
So the suit is nice, just like the golf shirt and just like certain things, but you're usually put in a different category.
The pretty boy, the preppy boy,
And those men still, get women as well, get the same.
Yeah, of course.
Get the same perks as, say, the bad boy. But how do you blend that type of style? Because I know with suits, like we said, there's criminals in suits and stuff like that, but we're still giving them the respect that they're in a suit. We're not looking at them as like the guy in the biker jacket, with the tatted up.
So there's no negative connotation to them. Yeah.
I think like the whole preppy good guy thing, it's again like that's your style of living life. And if you guys notice, the preppy guys, whatever, you can also see how their preppiness carries into like streetwear, right?
Yeah.
And I feel like, if you're a bad boy, it just shows through the suits as well. But I think overall, I agree that there's usually a connotation behind suits. And I remember when I started in the industry, coming from where I come from, it's like guys in suits are, you don't usually look at them as like the smooth, like smooth operator, like the bad boy, whatever. You just see them as like very square people that just have very square jobs, and just like sometimes like it's
You're
hard
not that
to
guy, pal. Trust me. You're not that guy.
sometimes it's hard to realize, you know what, it has nothing to do with the suit. But to go back to the main question, I think it's easier to stop a woman on the street if you're in a suit than not, right? Regardless if you're, 6'2", whatever it is, 6'4", 6'5", there are times where like women will pass you by if you're in streetwear just because, again, you're just another guy, I guess, right? But a suit, I don't think I've ever met a woman that doesn't get startled a little bit with, in front of a man with a well-fitting suit. It's just like,
It's welcoming.
Well,
it's certainly welcoming.
it's very welcoming.
I would say that for some women, depending on the age, they could be intimidated by a guy with a suit.
Good point too. So I was gonna ask you when you said that. I was gonna ask you to which socioeconomic level are we speaking of? Because different women fit different categories themselves as well.
Well, I mean, usually the bad boy and that look, it typically goes for women that are in their early 20s, possibly mid 20s, definitely late teens. So when we're talking about the guy that is in formal attire and he has a suit game on point, we're talking about women that are on their way. They're kind of declining at this point, where they've already hit their peak, and now we're
desperation levels. Desperation levels.
That's crazy.
So now we're getting to the point where they're trying to settle down. They're trying to find somebody that has stability, that's secure, and they're gonna look at the different attires. And when you look at a man in a suit, he looks well respected. He looks like a guy that has a plan.
Yeah.
He looks like a guy
think,
that's certain.
100%.
So that's what they're gonna go after.
I think it's the same way as like how we see women in dresses, right? Like you can see a woman that's extremely good looking, but once she puts on like a dress that flatters her proportions, her size, her shape, you're kind of like, damn. Even if you met her not wearing a dress, when she puts that on, there's not one time where we don't go like, damn, right? So it's the same thing.
Jesus Christ.
Whether you're on the street, I think whether you're intimidating women or not, some women are not, I think throwing on a suit that actually flatters your proportion, looks right on you, and just frames you nicely, because that's the whole point of a suit at the end of the day, right? Just lead to the moneymaker. There's nobody that doesn't appreciate deep down. Those feelings can also, they can turn into like intimidation, but there's not one woman that's gonna be like, damn, he doesn't look good. Especially your girl, right? You put a suit on,
exactly.
Especially if you're usually in streetwear, when you put your suit on, like I've had women that have been pissed where I've showed up not wearing a suit, being like, my whole fantasy about you is suits, right?
Wow.
And I was like, fuck me, right? She was like, you're a catfish. I'm like, damn, can I just take a day off?
No. When I talk about intimidation, I'm talking about where they feel that they're not on your level. They can't talk to you.
So
that's what I mean in that type of intimidation.
Exactly. That's what I thought you were aiming at as well.
Yeah.
And when I think of that, that's why I said, so what is the prerogative? What's the agenda here when you're dealing with women? I think a man should be at a stage where you ask yourself, what do I need from said woman? So obviously, if you're going to a club, if you're going to certain events, because I don't think what we're suggesting here is always be in a suit, right? So it's not every single day you're going to randomly see an individual outside. He's wearing a suit for absolutely no reason. So one has to recognize what is the goal here, and men should always recognize what is the goal when you're approaching a woman. And even if that woman feels, she may feel intimidated, let's say, or a little startled for the point that she can't measure up to your level, because women do a lot of these games, right? They see, okay, can I step on him? Can I control him in this way and this way? Like this happens. So you kind of set the tone and set the line. Most times women will appreciate that, because oftentimes, contrary to popular belief, women don't want to necessarily take the lead in these type of things. They can almost even relax and say, this man, he's got it. Okay, so now when I add up everything else he has, do I want to submit to him? I know that's a word people don't like to use these days, submit, but it's a thing.
There you go. So even going on about the whole suit thing, and this is for like a lot of younger guys, because obviously younger guys don't really know this information. That's a big point of this topic today. A lot of younger guys, even men of our age group and older, don't even understand the etiquette of having a suit and the things it does for you, because it's just like me, my line of work, when I was wearing a suit, a lot of compliments, that I never experienced outside of a suit were happening. And I was kind of wondering, I'm like, damn, this shit's real. Like, I remember Kevin
100%.
Samuels was saying, like, Suit Saturdays. For those that don't know Kevin Samuels, RIP to him, but he was a, popular YouTuber that was, red pill and all that. But that's another topic for another day. But the point of the matter, he had Suit Saturdays, and Suit Saturdays, what that did was he urged men to dress in a suit and just do casual things, go to the grocery store, just walk around, whatever the case may be, obviously to establishments, not just out at a park or nothing like that, but go do some stuff and see how the people treat you. And obviously, if you've ever done something like this, you would notice that your treatment is far different. And sometimes you realize that you're treated a certain way based on your attire. So a lot of the times, if you have a baseball cap on and you have a chain hanging and you have a iced out watch, it comes with certain connotations. Obviously, if you're mimicking dope boys or people that maybe got money through scamming, drug dealing, whatever the case may be, that's going to be the stigma that's attached to you, unfortunately. Even though a lot of the people that dress like that are artists and legit legally making money, the point is their image is those in the streets. They're trying to basically paint a picture for you through their artistry. They're not trying to say necessarily that they're doing that or they're living that lifestyle. They might portray it like that, but at the end of the day, they have a record deal. So I think it's important for some of the younger generation to just understand that you have to mix it up. No one's saying that you shouldn't wear sneakers, like you shouldn't wear a chain, you shouldn't have an iced out watch, you shouldn't have, Cartier frames or whatever the case may be. I think that you can have those things, but even if you have expensive pieces on, like Cartier, like, even a Rolex or whatever the case may be, if you're not dressed a certain way, it's not going to garner the same respect. And that's the biggest thing that I think, suits transcend, is when you're completely put together. Now it starts to make sense in terms of, oh, this guy must be doing things legitimately. He must be, because he's putting himself together. It doesn't seem like it's just a quick flip, where when someone just comes out and is wearing joggers and all this stuff, it could be Gucci, it could be whatever, people are still going to interpret that person as they might be dishonest, or they might be getting money a certain way that's not, that's not known to everyone. So I think that stigma is always going to be there. And for younger guys that want to get into dressing well, do you have any advice for guys that would want to start their wardrobe, people that never had a suit in their life? Where should they start in terms of getting a piece, even if it's casual, not for occasion, but just to have something to say that they have a suit? Where would you say is a good place to start for those young men or even women that are trying to change up their wardrobe? What's a good place to start?
Even that would complement their body type and their personal style, because when you see them, you're gonna notice that they have a certain type of style. So I'm pretty sure you're gonna have to ask them questions. But yeah, where would they start? That would be a good question.
I think the start to building a wardrobe is always you either take a proactive step or you're forced into it. Like, again, you have an interview, your boys getting married, whatever the case is. The first step, obviously, is you have to do a bit of research and find a brand that aligns with you. What I mean by that is you got to look into the process of a brand, the pricing of a brand, and why their pricing is what it is. Because everything has a price in life, right? So every time you get a discount, it's also a discounted experience, a discounted product. So you kind of have to do a bit of research on a brand that aligns with you, book a couple consultations, walk in, kind of like get a sense of the process until you're comfortable, because it's an intimidating process, man. Like, you just don't know what you're doing. You just don't know what to ask for. It's so easy to take advantage of people in the industry, which is why it's so important to educate people on these things, right? So I think the start would just be to find somebody that, like a brand that you align with, that makes sense to you, to your budget, whatever the case is. And just, I guess you got to figure out where you're going to wear the suit for. Your first suit, you always want it to be as versatile as you can. Can you still wear it with other pieces in your wardrobe, right? Can you actually mix up the jacket of the suit with some pants you already have? Because you don't always have to get 3 different suits as soon as you get into like building your actual wardrobe. So I suggest looking into one suit, trying out a brand. The budget obviously is very subjective to people, but figure out where you're going to wear the suit, how are you going to wear it, and then how long you want to keep the jacket on, for example. Like, I've had my jacket on the whole time this podcast, right? I'm not hot in it. I can move in it. So this suit was specifically designed because I'm like, I'm going to wear this to events, things that require me to keep a suit on the whole time. So there are specific tips and tricks that I do with the jacket to make it comfortable and breathable for that. Like removing half of the liner, like softer shoulders, yada, yada. So I'd say definitely first thing first is figure out what your lifestyle is, figure out what you want to get out of the suit. If you're client facing, you're going to have a different suit than you would if you're just going to events, right? So,
Yes, sir.
yeah. So I say figure out, look at your wardrobe, see what you want to throw out, what you want to keep, what can be mix and match, figure out the color. And I think the most important aspect is figuring out what you're going to wear the suit to and what you want the suit to be.
All right. And how do you stay up to date with the latest trends in menswear and incorporate them into suits, customization? How does that work out?
Honestly, man, I'm a student in the game. So like even though I'm nearing like, a decade in the field, I'm never really comfortable in it.
Yeah.
Just
Never complacent. Okay.
Never complacent. Like I've made it part of my lifestyle. So sometimes I want to make stuff for myself. So I got to go and look for inspiration. And sometimes you just kind of pick up trends, right? You pick up colors, cuts. Sometimes you want to make your own trend, which I've done with a couple colors here and there.
But where do you usually get those inspirations
honestly,
from?
social media, man.
No, true.
Social media, but then also getting out to events. There's some great events like in Italy, like called PT1, where it's actually known for being like the event where people are out there just peacocking.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, but like just getting out, traveling a little bit, seeing what people wear, what people wear and when and how they wear it, and you kind of get all this info, and then you end up seeing a trend. But yeah, I honestly like also like a lot of big fashion houses. Like sometimes you just gotta follow what they're doing, because necessarily the trend might not be there, but they're just gonna like market the hell out of it. Like a brand like Gucci is able to just make a trend out of nowhere just because the following they have, they'll just do something, people do it. So if you're a student of the game, you're always looking at these things and kind of like learning and like reinventing yourself. So in that process, you pick up trends, you pick up colors, so you can suggest things to your clients or friends in upcoming seasons.
Okay. So I had a question about, the city, Toronto, that's where we're from. That's where we're repping. You already know. So, where do you see your growth in Toronto? Because the thing about Toronto, we're doing our podcast here. People are trying to, make it. People are trying to get to the next level when it comes to this content creating and all that. So when it comes to even businesses, I mean, people want to be local to a certain extent, but we all have aspirations of going global, having that bigger impact. Some people want to be local as well, but I know a lot of people want to, they want to transcend, whether it's their families, wealth or whatever the case may be. You want to reach that peak, right? Be that guy in your family. So when it comes to growth in your business, do you see Toronto as a hub for these type of creative ideas? Like, because me and my brother, we sit here and we wonder this all the time. We're like, is this a place where you can grow a business, especially when it comes to creativity, when it comes to doing things different, that's why we're far from normal.
100%. That's an incredible question, because I think at the end of the day, like it depends on who you ask, right? Because I know people that have made a killing in Toronto that tell you Toronto is amazing, and I know people that have just been struggling that tell you Toronto's just not the place. So my whole thing, it goes hand in hand with like destination happiness, where some people are like, well, if I live there, I'll be happy, and they're always traveling, looking for something in a different city. If you don't take accountability for what is actually hindering your growth in your own city, you're gonna encounter the same problem elsewhere. For example, you could say, hey, you know what? Let's move the podcast to New York or LA. A lot more creatives, a lot better guests, I guess. But then if you still lack that one thing that you weren't, you didn't take in consideration by yourself, that's stopping you from that growth, you're still gonna run into that problem maybe later on, maybe $1 million later, maybe $1 million in the hole, but you will run into that problem. So my whole thing is Toronto has, showed me a tremendous amount of love, man. Like I've lived in Ethiopia, Italy, Geneva, and then Toronto is one of the cities that show me the most love. Not the easy way, but I kind of had to just stop blaming my environment and be like, hey, you know what? Like, it is a little bit tougher than other cities. For example, you go to the United Arab Emirates, you're not paying taxes. So that's money you could put towards your business. You can go to Dallas and there's no tax. So at the end of the day, I think a lot of entrepreneurs that are from Toronto, as soon as they get a bit of pull and an opportunity to kill somewhere else, they just go. Just because, number one, the city does, maybe it might not give you as much as you want it to. Other cities have people with different spending mindsets, et cetera, et cetera. So I think it's very subjective on who you ask. I think it's a great city to do whatever you got to do, as long as you are constantly accountable for what you think you're stopping yourself from growing. Because I had a lot of things like, I was procrastinating and I was like, fuck, like maybe I should move to New York. Like, then what? I'm going to procrastinate there. So until you actually,
that's a fact.
Yeah, until you hone in on that and you're like, you know what, like first let's fix everything that's wrong with me, my work ethic. Because I know people that, move to New York, pull out a laptop and they just feel like they're doing stuff. And you're not necessarily growing, but you're feeling busy. So it feels like growth. But so I think it has to do with the person. But I will say this, we are very behind as far as big cities like New York, Milan, Dubai. We're very behind when it comes to ideas and executing them. And I do feel like there are a lot of things that would have succeeded, a lot of my ideas or a lot of my concepts in different cities, especially for events, which is why I started a company before my Sue brand that was meant to educate people on like lifestyle events and concepts. Because at the end of the day, it's not that we're not a good city. We have so much potential. It's just people don't have the education. So people are just kind of going for the basic things that are marketed to them instead of learning about artisans and artists and like what different concepts. They just kind of want to go for whatever's marketed to them. So yeah.
So I want to Jariah's opinion on that.
I was gonna say the same thing. Yeah.
I mean, like what Rico said, what I was taking from when he was speaking was there's a constricting element to this city, but he did make a point to say that you got to search within and you got to realize the things that are going to restrict you here are probably going to restrict you elsewhere too if you're not focused, if you don't hone in on what you need, what you do well in, and where you don't do so well in. I have a different take with Toronto in terms of love-hate, mostly, I'll say mostly hate. But one thing that I recognize, and I don't speak from a point of hatred, I'm just saying that there's the city sometimes, again, back to the point of constricting, it can really be discouraging if you don't have a network. So one thing I'm realizing too is that networks definitely help encourage you, because in this city too, because of the bills and the cost of living, you may sometimes get to a place where it's like, what is the point of doing this? Other businesses that have, that are 10 years, 15 years, 25 years, they're already succeeding. What's the point of me coming into this? What am I going to do? This is a big Goliath here, and I'm just a small David. What can I really do to this? So, I mean, I'm not sure if that answered the question.
It's, it's crazy. That's I think Toronto's one of the cities that has, don't quote me on the stats, but I think it's one of the cities that has the most entrepreneurs, more than entrepreneurs that are 100%. Successful, just because everybody needs that safety net. But you also kind of want that creative freedom, because like that's always been my role within a lot of brands. I was like acting as an entrepreneur from business development to like getting my own clientele, yada yada yada. So 100%. I think in Toronto it's cutthroat market.
Exactly.
If you don't kind of hone in on what you got to do and build a network, etc., which still goes back to taking accountability and for yourself and just actually like making the moves you got to make. But 100%, it's a city that literally will make you think twice.
Exactly.
Before you kind of jump into something. So that's why you see a lot of guys, that are entrepreneurs. It's very low rate of failure, and if you fail, you're within the company, so somebody else is paying for your mistakes.
I think that has to deal with the culture itself, where institutions that we grew up in really taught us to be a company man rather than being an entrepreneur.
Good point.
Like going out on your own, figuring it out. The only reason why I have that mind of an entrepreneur is because my father was an entrepreneur. So it kind of gave me a different vision of like creating something of your own. Don't only rely on
100%.
Working for a company and being within a company. You got to go out there and you got to hunt for yourself. And that's the only way you can become a man. So
100%.
That's where I got that's how I became driven enough to, go out on my own, try and figure stuff out, lived overseas, got to see something different, watched other entrepreneurs and how they were behaving, and got to see how they moved and grooved. And I started picking up a couple things, came back to Toronto, started applying what I learned, and here we are with this podcast, right?
Good point.
How how do you feel it? Because I know you're in the teaching business, right? How does how do you see that take of like schools not, showing you?
I was just about to say that, so thank you for giving me that that pass.
Absolutely.
When you think about it, you say to yourself, the institutions that exist are mired in old school ways of thinking. That's number one. Number two, there's a system in play here. Again, this is when you use that term systemic, and some people don't like hearing that term, but sometimes you can be so mired in a certain way of doing things that there isn't an encouragement to think outside the box. Stay within the box, stay within the imprisonment, because it does a few well at your expense, at your family's expense. So it's so interesting you brought that up, because I was actually thinking as you were speaking, I was thinking to myself, I'm saying, how do we actually, make it worthwhile for it to go into these institutions, these educational platforms, and be able to have people rejoice to the idea that you can actually affect your neighborhood, you can affect your quality of dress wear, you can affect your style, you can affect the world with your style, so, and currently I don't really have an answer for it, truthfully. I'm pondering, and it does look like an uphill battle. But one thing that you did say earlier is confidence. I think you were touching on the term confidence without exactly saying it that way. You were saying about knowing yourself, knowing your pros, your cons, and also thinking to yourself and telling yourself that you do belong here. You do belong. You do have an input. You do have an input. So you just got to, in some cases, you just got to hunker down and just keep going straight, and do not be frightened by the first, decline that you see, because again, this is profit from an economical perspective. This is a profit and loss system. Oftentimes people are just focused on the profit, not realizing that there are losses that come with this. So sometimes these are lessons that you can get from these losses, and just learn how to adapt. That's how I'm thinking.
100%. And
absolutely.
Like I said, I mean, what you guys described is pretty good when it comes to, the city and what your expectations should be on yourself instead of the city that you're in, because sometimes the environment might change, certain aspects of your life, but it doesn't change the internal in terms of working on yourself, getting rid of the bad habits, being more productive in a different environment. But I do believe that, environment does dictate a lot as well. So there's going to be a big factor in changing your environment. You change your friend group, you change your habits. So a lot of things are forced upon you. Like, for example, here, weed's legal, right? So it might be easy for you to go around, get weed, and say you're addicted to smoking, say, for example, and then you go to another city and all of a sudden it's illegal. Now, you might be able to find it, but most likely you're not going to smoke as much because you just don't have the resources, or you might not bother at that point because it's too much of a hassle for you. So I think certain things will be altered or changed, but of course, I think you have to work on your major bad habits or major things that you need to improve on for sure in order to have success somewhere else. But this podcast is actually coming to an end, but we do want to just get final thoughts on the whole podcast. This was a good topic. I appreciate really the guests for sure. I'm first gonna have to drop a bomb for the guests for coming and welcome, and then we're gonna have to drop that applause.
Sir.
Respect to Rico, Suave, you already know, he's always fresh with the suits.
And we got Jariah, the wise, coming in with that wisdom.
You already know it's the Far From Normal podcast. If you guys have any last words in terms of the podcast experience, we appreciate you guys for coming in, spending the time.
100%.
We know it takes a little while to set up, but things gonna come out clean. We got a lot of good conversation out of this. I think
still working here. We trying to figure it out.
100%.
We're building it as we fly it, and
Facts.
it's just gonna keep getting better with each podcast episode. So yeah.
One thing that's electric for me is that these individuals here they're very passionate, and they have a love for this. And the city of Toronto, sometimes when you find individuals like this, you got to cherish them and hold on to them. So I really appreciate the Far From Normal podcast, even having me on. Definitely appreciate that. This was good. This was good.
Let's get it. Any last words, Rico?
Man. You guys treated us amazing, and I think I said this when I walked in. You guys, took the idea, just went with it, and then you're polishing as you go. So that's one thing that I want everybody to do out there that's might be getting into any industry. Just get it started, man. You'll figure it out as you go.
There you go. So that's wise words from Rico and Jariah, special guest today on the podcast. If you guys want to plug in any social media, go ahead and drop it. Drop the tag where they can find you at, whatever you're promoting. If you guys want to drop the plug, the floor is yours.
Yep.
Personal Instagram handle, the good 3, TheGood3. I'll pass it on to Jariah.
I would also give my personal handle for Instagram. It's Jariah_PRO. So that's JARIAH_PRO.
Okay.
All
there
right.
we have it.
Thank you.
And this
Thank
is
you,
the
guys.
Far From Normal podcast with your boy Sonny Frames.
And your boy Fuzzy Vision.
And we are out. Deuces.
Facts.
So say good night to the bad guy. Come on. The last time you're gonna see a bad guy like this again, let me tell you. Come on. Make way for the bad guy. There's a bad guy coming through. Better get out of his way.
You're not that guy, pal. Trust me. You're not that guy.
You scared coward. You got man enough to fuck with me. You can't last 2 minutes in my world.
Have future here. You don't have future. You can never make. You can never make it. You supposed to be a dinner man, serving dinner to the students in the secondary school.
See, as you can see, the more you fuck around, the more you're gonna find out. If you stay down here and you never fuck around, you'll never find out.
Where you make